Russia and Belarus have completed their first joint nuclear drills, and Moscow is presenting it as a success story. Dictator Putin said the goals of the exercises had been fully achieved. In practice, that meant rehearsing nuclear scenarios, including launches of ballistic and cruise missiles. Putin also made clear this is not a one-off performance. He said Russia and Belarus should keep developing their nuclear capabilities, framing the drills as a part of a systematic effort to strengthen the defense of both countries.
The use of such weaponry, specifically nuclear weapons, constitutes an extreme, exceptional measure for ensuring the national security of our states. At the same time, given rising global tensions and the emergence of new threats and risks, our nuclear triad must, as always, serve as a reliable guarantor of the sovereignty of the Union State of Russia and Belarus, and ensure the fulfillment of strategic deterrence objectives, as well as the maintenance of nuclear parity and the balance of power at the global level.
Russia and Belarus were openly rehearsing the delivery of nuclear munitions, missile launches, and the redeployment of Iskander and missile system. Belarusian units practiced receiving nuclear warheads, preparing launch systems, and moving missiles launchers. At the same time, Russia launched Yars intercontinental ballistic missile, Tsirkon hypersonic missiles, and Kinzhal missiles. The drills once again highlighted how deeply Belarus has been pulled into Moscow's military orbit and strategic planning.
Exercises involving Russian nuclear weapons deployed on Belarusian territory demonstrate the extent to which Russia has effectively absorbed Belarus under its control. Belarus's constitution previously defined the country as a non-nuclear state. However, in 2022, Belarus amended its constitution, abandoning its neutral and non-nuclear status, likely under Kremlin pressure and due to Moscow's influence over Belarusian decision-making. These exercises reflect the deterioration of Belarusian sovereignty and the expansion of Russia's ability to use Belarus as a staging ground for its own military objectives.
At the same time, Ukraine warns that Russia could again use Belarusian territory to increase pressure from the north. President Zelensky says Ukraine is not ignoring the northern threat from Belarus.
It is very important to support our people here and strengthen our defenses. That is exactly what we are doing. This concerns protective infrastructure, fortifications, and other defensive measures, as well as strengthening the border, which will be reinforced further. It also concerns our defense and security forces stationed in this direction, toward Chernihiv and Kiev, from the territory of neighboring Belarus, which Russia is eager to draw deeper into this war, and from Russia's Bryansk region.
Analysts see it as a continuing threat, but not necessarily a sign of an imminent new invasion.
Well, the risk from Belarus never went away. I mean, the Russian forces launched some of their large-scale, full-scale invasion in 2022 from Belarusian territory. And whilst the Battle of Kiev was won by Ukraine and the Russians had to withdraw to the north, the threat from Belarus has never quite gone away. Belarus has provided airfields, it's provided munitions to Russia, it's provided a location for Russia to do recent nuclear weapons drills. So the Ukrainian military has never taken its eye off the northern border, but at the same time, Lukashenko has never indicated he'd like to be a direct participant in this war, and I find that unlikely to change at this point.
Meanwhile, Bloomberg reports that Ukraine and its allies are becoming increasingly confident that Russia's invasion is losing momentum. The publication writes that Ukrainian forces have stabilized much of the front line, while Ukrainian drone strikes are bringing the war deeper into Russia and fueling growing war fatigue inside the country. Leading Western media outlets are increasingly discussing another possibility, that the Kremlin may already be looking for ways to freeze or gradually wind down the war, but only on Putin's terms.
The nervous mood is shared by many in Russia's elite, with some senior Kremlin officials believing the conflict has reached a dead end, with no clear way to resolve it, people familiar with situations said. Putin wants to conclude the war by the end of this year, but only on what he sees as victorious terms, including full control of the eastern Ukrainian Donbass region that his forces have failed to capture for more than a decade, according to one of the people. while also seeking a broader security agreement with Europe that would effectively acknowledge Moscow's territorial gains.
Peter Magyar had been Hungary's prime minister for only 12 hours when Russian drones and missiles struck Zakarpattia, the Ukrainian region bordering Hungary. That's according to The Telegraph. The newspaper quotes Petr Kreko, director of the Budapest-based think tank Political Capital, who described the attack as a warning shot to Hungary's new government. According to experts, Russia had largely avoided targeting Zakarpattia for years as part of informal understanding with Viktor Orban's government. But now, as the new leadership in Budapest begins moving away from its pro-Russian line, Moscow appears to be signaling that the rules are changing.
This attack put an end to the understanding between Orban and Putin over the protection of ethnic Hungarians in this region. Losing Orban as an ally in Europe has become a significant setback for Moscow, both politically and pragmatically. This is a real break with the previous approach. Orban's government constantly criticized Ukraine and Brussels for being too tough, but did not criticize Russia. And now, it seems, that is changing quite clearly.
Another revealing signal from Washington. For the first time in several years, a representative of Donald Trump's administration is expected to attend the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, Russia's main showcase, which Western delegation largely abandoned after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The official is Rodney Cook, the chair of the U.S. Commission of Fine Arts. According to the Moscow Times, he's expected to attend the plenary session where Vladimir Putin will speak. For the Kremlin, the St. Petersburg Forum is not just about business. It is a stage where Moscow tries to show that it is not isolated, that the West is coming back, and that contacts are being restored. Even if the American presence remains far below pre-war levels, the very fact that the Trump administration official is attending already looks like a political signal. NATO foreign ministers have gathered in Sweden to discuss Ukraine, defense spending, strengthening deterrence, and preparations for the Alliance summit in Turkey in early July. Another major topic is the future role of the United States in Europe.
Russia continues to threaten the security in the whole Euro-Atlantic area and test our readiness. Right here along the coastline, vessels from Russia's shadow fleet pass almost on a daily basis, financing Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. It underlines the importance of NATO's policy to constrain, counter and contest Russia.
Washington is increasingly signaling that European countries and Canada will have to take on more responsibility financially and militarily. According to Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha, Ukraine is no longer simply asking for assistance. Ukraine is holding the front line, containing Russia, and has battlefield experience that NATO itself now needs.
The nervous mood is shared by many in Russia's elite, with some senior Kremlin officials believing the conflict has reached a dead end, with no clear way to resolve it, people familiar with the situation said. Putin wants to conclude the war by the end of this year, but only on what he sees as victorious terms, including full control over the eastern Ukrainian Donbass region that his forces have failed to capture for more than a decade, according to one of the people, while also seeking a broader security agreement with Europe that would effectively acknowledge Moscow's territorial gains.
How differently statements from Budapest sound now. Our neighbors are beginning a gradual 180-degree turn away from the disgusting pro-Russian policy they pursued for years. Hungary's new Prime Minister, Peter Magyar, says the Budapest memorandum failed because of the international community did not guarantee Ukraine's territorial integrity or independence. Now, he says, Ukraine needs not just a peace agreement, but one with a real security guarantees. Budapest and Kyiv are now trying to reset relations, and so far, this looks like one of the few cases where a reset is actually working.
You know, the territorial integrity of Ukraine was guaranteed in 1994 in the Budapest Memorandum, was signed in Budapest, of course. And the problem is that the international stage didn't really do its job and not guarantee did not guarantee the integrity and the independence of Ukraine. And now we need a peace agreement with real guarantees.
The United States is again reshifting its military presence in Europe. After earlier plans to reduce troops on the continent, Donald Trump now says Washington will send an additional 5,000 US troops to Poland. Germany is trying to present this as not a crisis, but as a part of a broader NATO adjustment.
I very much welcome the decision to deploy additionally 5,000 troops in Poland. This is a good decision because it serves not only for Poland's security, but for the security of the whole alliance and so also for us. So this is absolutely in our interest. We support that very much, and we are very close allied to Poland as well as to the United States.
Berlin also says talks with Washington continue over long-range missile systems in Germany, even after the earlier halt in sending US personnel trained to operate them.
We are in ongoing discussions with the United States about deploying long-range missile systems in Germany. We are inviting the United States to America to stay to their previous plans and to do that. But we are also ready for a procurement process in order to implement these systems into the German Bundeswehr. So we do this in the spirit of partnership and of solidarity in our NATO.
That's all for now. Thank you for watching.